Each and every month, we do a segment called Props or Slops. Basically, we bring somebody in from the YouTube community to give props, a comic book topic that is timely, that they're giving praise to, or slops, a comic book topic that is timely, that they are just completely dogging. This week, we have Roger Levesque, and he has a great topic he's going to talk about here. And Chris and I will talk about that on the flip side.
What is up, everybody? Thank you, Chris and Jeff, for having me on tonight's Props and Slops. I am giving props, and we are going to be talking about diversity in comic books. Wise men have said comic books have a proud history of being a reflection of the world that we are in. I'm going to really concentrate on DC. Marvel, has done their share. They've gotten a lot of flack over the years for not being diverse. They've had women, Pepper Potts, Jane Foster, Peggy Carter. They had War Machine, they had Falcon. They're always behind the scene characters. Nick Fury and Black Widow were kind of up front, but they were still behind their white male characters. Then you got Black Panther and Captain Marvel, and now the Black Widow movie coming out. So they're doing their best, but they're still taking flack. I'm especially interested in what DC is doing. DC with their television shows had plenty of diversity, at least in my opinion. Iris and Wally West was in there, Diggle, Zari, Starfire, who took a lot of backlash when she was cast as an African-American Starfire. And then Black Lightning got his own show. Now they're talking about having their first Black Batwoman, who's replacing someone else who was controversial in a gay Batwoman. She was open about struggling with that part. And of course there's Wonder Woman, and now you have Michael B. Jordan talking about bringing Static into it. The Green Lantern series having Jon Stewart as the focal point. But coming in December, this DC Future State, if you just look at the poster for DC Future State, the first thing you notice is there's maybe 5 or so white men, and like 4 of them are Superman. I think DC has shown that their superheroes need to reflect the world around us, and so that little kids know that they can be superheroes. They're going to have Katana's going to be a big one in there, Midnighter, who's a gay character. But just look at the Justice League, the very first issue of Justice League on it. You have Jonathan Kent. Wonder Woman's Brazilian. You have Aquawoman, who is Andy Curry, who is, I believe, the daughter of Mira and Arthur. You have a female Green Lantern in there. And then you have a Flash and a Batman who have not been revealed. So the rumors are that Batman is going to be Lucius' son, Luke Fox. So you'll have your first Black Batman. So what is Flash? Flash could be a woman. Flash could be Hispanic. Flash could be anything. They haven't revealed that yet. I don't know. I don't necessarily read those. So if they announce it before DC Future State comes out and introduce it before. And then there's this other 5-issue series coming out that's called The Other History of DC Universe. And it's written by John Ridley, and it's a DC Black Label. So I believe it's over 17 to read. It's a 5-issue series. And what it does is it reframes iconic moments from the DC history, and it explores it through the eyes of DC superheroes that represent a traditionally disenfranchised group. So it's going to be through the perspective of Black Lightning, his daughter, Thunder, Mal Duncan, who's the Herald, Karen Beecher, who's Bumblebee, Renee Montoya as the Question, and Katana. And so the catchphrase for DC is, DC fans may think they know the history of DC Universe, but its true history is far more complex. The other history of the DC Universe isn't about saving the world. It's about having the strength to simply be who you are. I think that's awesome. I am looking forward for this to come out. I am going to get these issues. I'm going to read them. I hope the story's good. So let's get it. With all that said, diversity is great in comic books, but if the stories are no good, then nobody's going to read them, and these characters aren't going to last. So I really, really hope that DC made sure they had good writing in these stories, and that even though it's a short, the DC Future State is supposed to be a little, a couple months long, they froze the rest of their comics to make this DC Future State. So I'm going to give props to DC for doing what they can to make their universe a diverse place to reflect the world that we live in right now. And like I said, hopefully the stories are good, and hopefully some of these characters that make the DC future state, diverse, last and get their own stories or become part of another story that people read all the time. So it's interesting to see where the future is going to go, but I think this is where it needs to go if we're going to keep the youth involved and actively interested in comics. So that's my props. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Chris and Jeff, for having me on. And as I always say, the most valuable thing a person can give me is their time. Thank you for a little bit of your time.
And thank you for giving us your time, Roger. That was fantastic. By the way, Roger's part of a group called 3 Men in a Basement. Otto, Nemesis Prime, and Dave in the Cave. They do some fantastic content too, by the way. And Roger has his own show every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The Cranky Canadian. I guess he's from Canada. I know he's a Habs fan. Oh yeah, look at that. I don't know if you did that on purpose. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us for Props and Slops, Roger. It's a very important topic that Chris and I seem to talk about each and every week. And he gave props, diversity in DC. And absolutely, you got to applaud what they're doing here. And it's not like they're going out of their way to be PC and we have to have diversity. And we're going to, from what we see, what's coming up, it looks like it's going to be integrated within the, DC canon, DC lore. And it's something to be excited about, especially going back, doing the other history of the DC universe. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. There's so many key points that Roger brought up. I do want to say, we did speak early about Marvel. I don't want to overshadow the fact that, it was Stan Lee's mission to fight against, marginalization and oppression, being the first publisher to introduce Black characters even before DC. I don't want that to get overshadowed. But to Roger's point, I think DC is understanding how to do this right now and what that looks like. I think Marvel has had a little bit of catching up to do, say, over the last 10 years or so. And I go back to what Jim Lee said at Fandom, where he talked about, look, diversity isn't just saying, we're coming from a U.S. or an American perspective, right? It's coming from a global perspective, and they want to create characters that are globalized, that somebody in Afghanistan or India or, Thailand or Brazil or Chile or, anywhere around the world, Greenland, Ireland, like anybody around the world can identify with these different characters. And that's why I don't even think it's just about race. It's about bringing those cultures in. And when you think about representation culturally, race follows, because different cultures, because of our biological evolution, has created different phenotypes, creating different races. Those things will follow. And I think DC is really doing that here, like bringing up a Brazilian Wonder Woman. It's not just that we have a Latina that's like an American just to have a different minority, but this is somebody with a different culture coming in as well. I think DC really understands that. To Roger's point, they've been really mixing it up and reflecting it in their properties outside of the comic books as well. When you look at the Arrowverse, their TV shows, and including their movies, and it's worked. Like you said, Jeff, we get this argument all the time of, oh, it's just pandering and they're forcing it. I watch all the CW shows, and although some of them are cringy, I haven't had any problems with the characters and how they've been developed.
Cringy for other reasons. Yeah.
Cringy for other reasons, exactly, like cringy soap opera type stuff, right? And I'll use this one example about how I, talk about, that the New Warriors team where, we had Snowflake and Safe Space, and, you see Marvel trying to be diverse and represent, LGBT characters and whatnot, but you have this middle-aged geeky white dude that, what does he know about the LGBT community? So that's why when we talked about Moon Knight and the director earlier in the show, you really can't just have people that are out of touch continually to create these characters and have there no basis in the true reality of the culture of these characters. So I think DC is really looking at all these different things. They're playing into really getting the people behind the scenes involved that represent the characters that they're creating.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see where this goes as well. Definitely comic books there's a world audience out there, and that world audience is growing, and we are speaking to it. Into Roger's final point, the story needs to be good. Yes, stories have to be good. And then secondly, if we want the young generations to continue to get involved, these books need to speak to them.
Yep. And I'm gonna reinforce this point again. Representation matters for the people who watch it on the screen, but also behind the scenes. From the people who are on the bottom, the production assistants, all the way at the top to the executive producers, the directors, the writers. Representation matters because we're all different. We all bring a unique perspective. You're not gonna have some middle-aged white dude being able to write about something in any other person's culture that's not his, as well as somebody who's in that culture and is just as talented as him. So again, representation matters for a variety of reasons, and I think this is great. Again, y'all follow Roger at 3 Men in a Basement. The link is down below. I want to remind you guys of that. But to talk about the 2 events he's talking about for DC, the other history of the DC universe, from the press release from DC, a groundbreaking 5-issue bi-monthly DC Black Label miniseries by Academy Award-winning screenwriter John Ridley and a variety of artists. It'll examine the DC universe through the eyes of heroes of color. It comes out starting November 24th. I'm excited for that. Even that cover, like Black Lightning, that looks badass. The other one is DC Future State, where they're going to put a pause on all the rest of their lines of the rest of the DC lines and just concentrate on Future State. DC Future State spotlights the world's greatest superheroes in fresh new roles with all new characters taking up their iconic mantles. DC Future State features an incredible array of creative talent, combining award-winning writers and artists with new voices from the worlds of TV, movies, and animation. In March 2021, the regular DC title lineup resumes, continuing existing storylines from 2020 and introducing new arcs for the year. Again, DC Future State starts in January of 2021, and I'm excited. I'm definitely interested in seeing what they're going to bring to the table. So again, once again, thank you so much to Roger for that props and slops. We'll have somebody again next month. His link, again, 3 Men in a Basement, down below. The Cranky Canadian, every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. It is worth your watch. He's a great interviewer. He brings in a lot of fun guests. I think Sith Lordley was there last. He's in our chat right now. Anyways, thank you again, Roger.